Rift is the debut full-length album from Alberta, Canada-based black and death metal band Amphisbaena. This is a group that is, apparently it started as a duo back in 2013 by way of kind of the end of Weapon, where former guitarist NKLH, who was also a former member of Antediluvian, and drummer vocalist Paulus of Rights of Thy Degringalad, and of course from Sacramentary Abolishment, among many other groups, began to pursue something that was more chaotic, more black and death metal in style than their previous band they'd been working on. They would eventually expand to a quartet and put out an EP, I think on Iron Bonehead around 2015. I didn't know the record at the time. I checked it out after the fact a few years later, and mostly for their relation to Antediluvian, as a big fan of the band. And at the time there were vocals from HT of Antediluvian included, and so that was kind of what got me interested in the group at the time. 10 years passed beyond that release, and they're back with most of the same folks involved. I would describe this as atmospheric black and death metal with a ritualistic affect. There is something that is primal and aggressive and ruthless about it, but also there's clearly a focus on ambience and dark ambience is that, instrumentals, and kind of disassociative noise that adds to the sort of primitive but also brutal and aggressive side of the band. What I would say is that this record is clearly very different than the EP in a couple different ways, so we'll get a sense for that with a clip if you're familiar with the EP. Otherwise, I'll describe it in a moment. So there's a couple of things to note here. Is a much slower pace, a little bit less of a focus on technical acumen, and use of atmospheric and instrumental pieces to kind of fill the air and give space between the more serious parts. And the big thing you'll notice is this is not as brutal as the EP at all. It's not slapped out as hard. I wouldn't compare it to like Mitochondrion or Malthusian, in that those are very immediate bands, especially back in the 2010s. They were both very immediate and aggressive bands in that style, and here we get something that is almost psychedelic. It's almost searching for something more doomed in its movements, and there are certainly blasts, there are riffs. It's a very aggressive record overall, but a very different one from their EP, and I don't think I was disappointed with that at all. As a fan of a lot of the related bands, this is something that is a little bit different from these artists, and it echoes some of the stuff that we find in the best of Black Death Cult and whatnot. So for me, overall, there's some familiar sounds. There's mostly otherworldly sounds here, and it makes for something that is unique, odd in its rhythms, but also kind of purposeful in its invocation of its own self-flogging walk through this event. It is a brief record by all means, but it's impactful in the damage that it occurs within. I think that because it's high density and there's a lot of stuff going on, I can kind of excuse how quickly it just rips past like an EP, because there's a fair amount of substance here. And again, I love Abomination Hammer's work. I think it really suits a lot of the bands that choose the person's artwork. The presentation here is really fine. The production values are strong. A very organic result, which is generally just a fine statement from a band that I didn't know still existed. So it was a great shock, step back into their world and find it very much changed in a good way, and one that continues to be interesting as I revisit it. Check that out for yourself. For me, that's a moderately high recommendation. I think this is a very niche, darker type of record that will find its ownership in just a few people, but it's something that I liked quite a bit. So check that out for yourself and read my review on the site for more information.